Hello YouTube, ModernChaot here, and today we have a review of the Samsung Galaxy Player 4.0. Let's check out first the design of this device. At the front you have a 4-inch display with a resolution of 800 by 480, also known as WVGA. Then you have an earpiece, VGA front-facing camera, proximity sensor and ambient light sensor. Then you have a 3 capacitive menu buttons, a menu button, a home button and a back button. Also that screen is very reflective, it ain't very well. Then on the left hand side you have a volume rocker. On the top you have a micro USB port, better said, and a headphone jack. Note you can close the micro USB jack if you want to protect it from rain, maybe. Then on the right hand side you have a power button. On the bottom you have a microphone. And on the back you will find a 3.2 megapixel camera which records up to 480p and stereo speakers. Also, if you take the back cover off, like this, you see there's a battery with 1200 milliampere hours and also a micro SD slot for SD cards with up to 32 gigabytes. Alright, so after pressing the power button, you're greeted with screen glass to unlock. Alright, and there you are. It is the typical Samsung TouchWiz interface. I think it's version 3.0. And personally, I like this interface. It looks a lot like the iPod Touch interface or iPhone interface, and it is running Android 2.3.5 Gingerbread. I don't know if there is an update coming for Ice Cream Sandwich, but I wouldn't be so sure about that. Also, please note this device is running a custom kernel, also known as Steve's kernel, and I do not recommend installing that kernel if you don't know what you're doing. But if you do, I'm not responsible for it. Sorry. But yeah. Also, so back to the device. It is running a 1 GHz processor, which is an ARM version 7. Then you have a PowerVR SGX 540 graphics card, 8 gigs of internal memory, 512 megabytes of RAM, 32 gigabytes of micro SD card slot. You can put up to 32 gigabyte micro SDs in it. Also, you have a FM radio. Yeah, that's something cool. And GPS. Anyways, it also comes in one color, black bezel and white back. And it has USB 2.0 over the micro USB, Bluetooth 3.0 and Wi-Fi 802.11b GNN. So you can surf with up to 300 megabits per second if your network supports it. Also, the video is rated at 5 hours battery playback. The audio is rated at 36 hours of playback. It weighs 4.27 ounces or in grams 121. So, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much for all the specs. Now, it would be interesting if, well, how do I like that device? Well, it's good, and I mean, it's a really nice device. It plays like it should. It feels pretty light, and it also comes with a lot of stuff, and that's kind of cool. But you probably are wondering, unless you are an Apple fanboy or an Android fanboy, how it compares to the iPod Touch. Here we have an iPod Touch of the 4th generation, and it has 64 gigabytes. So how does it compare? Well, the camera is worse on the iPod. It does have a higher res screen though, but it's smaller. It does have less RAM, and it has a bit lower graphics card. I don't know if there's a big of a difference, but it could be. Also, it runs a slower processor with 800 MHz Apple A4. Yes, I know, people say it's an A4 runs at 1 GHz. but that is wrong because it is underclocked to 800 megahertz because of some temperature issues. Also, but the camera is better. Like, well, if you film video, it has 720p, but for photos, you won't get any more of that. It has Bluetooth 2.1, USB 2.0, Wi-Fi 802.11n, and it has a better battery life with 40 hours audio playback and 7 hours of video playback. And it's lighter. So, which one would I prefer? Well, I prefer the Android. Samsung Galaxy Player? Yep. That's my choice personally because, well, it's far cheaper than the iPod. Because if you compare, this device costs roughly $200. I got it for $180 on the internet. And the question is now, if you want an iPod, you can't upgrade. Like, you can get an 8 gig, 32 gig, or a 64 gigabytes in white or black. But the problem is simply, if you get one, you can't upgrade the space anymore. You have to run out and get another iPod. On the Android, meanwhile, you can get a 32 gigabyte SD card and you're on. I mean, for example, I have a 32 gigabyte SD card in here, and it cost me total $210 as of, well, last month, which is which is actually February 2012. The iPod, meanwhile, costs around $360 for 64 gigabytes, or around $300 for the 32 gig and $199 for the 8 gig. So on the 8 gig, they're good. They're pretty much the same price, except that this has more value. But a problem with the Samsung I had, the screen gets smudgy as hell. I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of it with the smudgy screen, but it's good enough. I mean, like, if you have a cleaning cloth like this lying around all the time, you're just gonna wipe it. And 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 wipe it.
We'll be right back.